We are coming to the end of this letter. And again, this is a fundraising letter, though the Alter Rebbe's fundraising letters are nothing like the fundraising letters you get in the shul. This is completely a soul analysis, a life, a window into life and meaning and purpose and Hashem's relationship with us. And there's really two themes in this chapter that we're addressing. We're addressing theme number one is the idea of rachamim, that there's such a concept of having mercy on Hashem. How does somebody have mercy on Hashem? You know, I could see somebody have mercy on someone that's your equal, or even someone that's greater than you, you have some relationship to. And so, what does it mean to have mercy on Hashem? What do? You feel bad for Hashem? Had a bad day? Was it rough? It was like a very schwitzy. What does it mean? And we explain very simply. Having rachmanis on Hashem means that God is such a great, infinite greatness, and He comes down into this world and into our physical body. And so, what we're really referring to is our soul. We have rachmanis on our soul. Our soul is a part of God. Like we said in chapter 2, it's chelek eleka mimal mamish. It's an actual part of God that comes into our bodies. And it's a rachmanis, what it has to go through. All of our temptations, all of our weaknesses, all of our distractions. As the Rebbe said to Shliach, who once mentioned that the Rebbe said, just keep in mind, wherever you go, you take me with you. You know, do what you think is right, but you take me with you wherever you go. Meaning, we're schlepping Hashem everywhere we go. We're schlepping Him into this world of all our, we weren't even talking about doing things wrong. It was a world just that revolves around myself. So that's the idea of one thing. And it's when a person gets in touch with that true identity of themselves, and that their mercy is not feeling bad for me or the personal, physical me. I'm feeling bad for the soul within me. And it's a mercy. And that's phenomenal. That's what we're talking about, one thing. The second point, good morning, we're talking about is, in this chapter, how does somebody achieve a level of serving Hashem with truth? We explained a lot about the word truth in this chapter. Truth is consistent. Truth is never changing. Truth is, in all circumstances, that's who you are. Truth goes from one end to the other, meaning it covers everything. There's no aspect that's not untouched by it. How does somebody reach a level of truth, especially a truth that can awaken by Hashem rachamim? Because what we want to do is, we want to sort of tap into a mercy, a rachamim, and this will somehow elicit by Hashem a responsive mercy on us. And that's sort of how we redeem our souls, how we save ourselves, so to speak. How could somebody tap into something when we have no connection to anything in truth? Everything we do is flimsy. It's temporary. Everything in this world is temporary, lasting. It doesn't have any truth to it, and we're fickle. Today we feel inspired, tomorrow we're not inspired. Today we feel we love somebody, tomorrow we love them less or more. We're constantly changing. How does somebody achieve truth? And that's what we came to at the very end of this chapter. We're coming to the last point. How do we achieve truth in our service to Hashem? What's the challenge? The challenge is we are very subjective people. Every single thing we do is our perspective, how we see it. And that's why we could argue, and it's so much fun to argue with other people, and we're really saying the same thing. We could say the same, we have the same exact opinion on Israel, on politics, on any topic, but I'm saying it my way, and I want you to hear how I say it, meaning I am extremely subjective, and every subject comes up, I have my perspective, why I like this mitzvah, why this story is so inspiring, why this parsha is so personal. And everything we're going to do is always going to be from my perspective. And it's supposed to be that way. Otherwise, we're lacking das. Das means it means something to me. But the success of das, which means it means something to me, is automatically limited by me. It's all how I see it. You know, I don't know if we all see colors. I heard from someone we all see colors differently. We're convinced that everyone sees the same thing. But what I call red and you call red might be different. What I call brown and you call brown is different. I know certainly my son, I have two sons who are colorblind, and they see things different colors. And it's very cute. They goes, is this brown? Is this green? A lot of things are brown when they're supposed to be green. The bottom line is, how do we see things is all subjective to me. They say the color glasses you're wearing will determine the right color, what you see. If you're wearing pink, let's say if you're wearing rose-colored glasses, everything seems rosy. If you're having a tough day, everything is frustrating. It's all based on our experiences. So in the same way, every mitzvah we do ends up being, what does it mean to me lighting Shabbos candles? Well, to me, lighting Shabbos candles means this. What does it mean when you have guests? Well, for me, it's all about me. How could you get past the me? And once you pass me, you can come into the infinite level of truth. Because as long as me is involved, I'm a created being. created people can have the ultimate truth. I'm a human being. I live for 180 years, with interest and with inflation. But let's say 120 years if you're doing a short life. And the bottom line is, after that, the physical body is gone. How do you tap into truth? And the Alter Rebbe said something fantastic. He said, let's go back 2 lines, because I want to just finish this whole subject. Let's go back 2 lines. We're towards the bottom of 220. It says, Achas Iggeres. Our goal of awakening and arousing by Hashem this mercy, which will be reciprocal, because one of the points, just to go back one point that I didn't say, the only way to awaken by Hashem true rachamim upon ourselves is with truth. What does that mean? We really have to tap into a level that we can't reach. It's a very interesting thing. And I gave a metaphor last week about getting a tip from somebody in a restaurant. What's a tip? A tip means you didn't earn this money because you get usually $10 an hour, and I'm giving you a $100 tip for 2 hours work. So why are you getting this? Because you were able to tap into a part of me that says, you know what? It doesn't matter if you earned it or not. I'm giving it to you. Meaning there's a level of a gifting somebody, even though a gift in general, I have a reason I'm giving the gift. It says a person wouldn't give a gift, they didn't have some benefit. Either I'd love to see the look of the face of my grandchild when I buy him a new toy, or I would like to see the benefits of what my donation to a shul is. Everything we do has some reason why I'm doing it. But as we'll see in a moment, there's a limit to how much it's limited. But the bottom line is, just to go back for a second, a gift that comes from above is something which we can't earn. So the question is, how can we, and we want to earn God's truth, God's mercy, God's infinite mercy. How can we earn it if we can't earn it? If it's a level we can't reach, how can we get there? And the answer is, we got to find a way to tap into God's truth, and then God will reciprocate and give us a level that we can't earn. In other words, how does the person who's doing the service and the waitress or the waiter giving you service in the restaurant, how does he tap into getting that tip? He does the best he can, and the more you do the best you can, the more probable you're going to get that tip at the end. Not because you earned it, but because you can't earn that. But you touch something in the person you're serving that says, you know what? I'm going to do this. How do we touch God to give us something we can't reach? And the answer is one word, tzedakah. And we're going to explain why right now. So he says, this awakening of mercy before God, we have to find a way to make it true. We have to make it authentic. We have to make it real. The problem is, like I told you the story last week of the Alter Rebbe, of the Alter Rebbe, that the person comes to the Alter Chassid says, he says, I came here because I'm lacking in my everything I do. I feel like I'm biased. I'm not authentic. I don't have the real truth when I do a mitzvah. Then he says, even what I'm asking you now is not really true. I'm just saying it because I know it's important to get truth. But I don't really care if I have the truth. I'm not even honest what I'm saying now. I want truth. And then he says, even this that and he keeps until he finally, after 4 times, he faints. And we said, that's the truth. Now truth comes out. In other words, a lot of times we want things, but is it because of the truth we want it, or because we know it's the right thing to want? What motivates us? Truly, what motivates us are things that matter to us deeply. It's hard to connect deeply to something that we can't relate to. Something that we can't relate to, it's like, I'll give you an example that I find, you may disagree with me, but I find this to be one of those things. One of the most powerful sikhs I heard from the Rebbe ever was a sikh on the 28th or the 27th of Nisan, going to the 28th, 1990. 1991. The Rebbe said a sikh that year, that he said, I have done everything I can to bring Mashiach, and I'm giving it over to you. If he says you would have asked for Mashiach with the truth, Mashiach would have been here a long time ago. The problem is you're only asking for Mashiach because I'm telling you to ask for Mashiach. I'm telling you to ask for Mashiach, so you're asking for Mashiach. We want Mashiach now, we really want Mashiach. Do you want him, or are you being told that you want him? A lot of times, I think we could come to a place that we don't really want Mashiach. You know what you want? A better exile. If we have a better exile, if our exile could have no terrorism, no illnesses, and no pain, if I could just have an easier exile, God, I'm okay. That comes from an ignorance of what Mashiach is. But the problem is we're ignorant in it. So how can I want something profoundly and deeply for real if I'm worried, 1 second, I'm working very hard on my business deal. Mashiach, If you plan to come this week, you wait 2 weeks. We're closing on a house in 2 weeks. We can start getting that mode. What does it mean? In the back of my mind, I'm hoping it doesn't come right now, because in a day from now, we're expecting a new grandchild, and I just want to have that Mashiach can come. Or I'm working on something that comes from if we know what Mashiach is, we want Mashiach to get it before those moments, because those moments would be 10 times more enjoyable without all the distractions and the haze and the smoke and the distraction of exile. The problem is we don't know what it is. So therefore, how do we ask for Mashiach? Guys, we need Mashiach. You know what's Mashiach? God forbid someone's child's kidnapped in hostages in Gaza. They want Mashiach for real. See how they ask for Mashiach and how we ask for Mashiach. Why? Because they need it. But again, do they really want Mashiach? They just want the child back. Meaning, is Mashiach just a solution to their problems? And they know what Mashiach is? So in other words, it's very hard to ask us that we can't relate to. I find the Mashiach to be that one thing that if we would really know what it was, it would be a no-brainer. But we don't really understand what it is. And therefore, the Rebbe once told somebody, I listened to a talk, the Rebbe said, it's something that the human mind can't grasp how good it is, and it can't be explained now in an example, how good Mashiach is. But we just have in our mind all these created images of what it is, and therefore we're hesitant. But the Rebbe said we should ask for Mashiach. There's a mitzvah of the Torah to want Mashiach. We want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now. Do we really want him? That's actually, there's a metaphor that's fantastic for this that I actually saw someone play out. We once played out that summer. We played out this whole story in a play for the kids in camp to get to this truth. It's about this king that has a child. And this child is amazing at chess, and he's amazing at math, and he's amazing at science, and he's brilliant, and he's articulate, and he's talented, and he's well-behaved. And someone says to him, maybe your child is only this way because he grows up in the palace. You got to test him. Send him out into the world. See how he will last, and see how he acts when he has challenges. So the king does it. And he wants the child to develop his own identity, not just the comforts, not just to be good in the comfort of his palace. So he goes out. Unfortunately, after many months and months and months, he finds the wrong crowd. He runs out of money. He ends up getting into the wrong crowd. He ends up getting involved with crazy things. And after 2, 3, 4 years, he forgot who he is. He doesn't remember his palace so much. And he's sitting and he's living a life somewhere in this seedy part of a neighborhood, drinking in bars. And he loves to sit there and play his guitar with his friends, whatever he does. And the king has his people watching him, and he's heartbroken. But as the years go by, the kid cares less and less about his history, and he's in his own world. The king turns to one of his most trusted and private servants. He says, I have a kid who I love. You know who this boy is. You know my son from 10, 15 years ago. He says, I know how to get him back here. If he would just come to me and ask to come home, I would take him back. But I need him to come back. I need him to want to come back here. So the guy says, I'll take care of it. He said, one thing I know your son loves violin. I'll take my violin. I'm going to catch him. I'm going to connect with him, and I'm going to bring him home. Anyway, the guy goes out, and he dresses like a regular person, blends into the crowd. He starts playing his violin near the bar where the boy is, and the kid can't believe it. He starts remembering the violin sounds, and he loves it. They get good friends. And the guy starts talking to him about his past, and he says, you should go back to your father. You should go back home. He goes, I don't know if my father wants me anymore. We're in different worlds. Yeah, I know when I was a teenager. He says, go back. He said, I promise you this. If you go ask your dad to come home, he'll take you home no matter what. He says, you know what? It makes everyone happy, and he misses me. Fine. He goes outside the palace, and he yells, Dad, I want to come home. The father hears him, and his father starts crying even more. Why? Because the kid doesn't even mean what he's saying. He's saying it. He doesn't even understand. He doesn't appreciate what he has inside the palace. He looks, if I have a good, cold, warm jacket and I have a comfortable a meal, then I'm happy. He doesn't realize in the palace what he can achieve and accomplish the greatness. So it hurts even more when there's lack of truth. In other words, the truth is so significant. And this is what we said the Rebbe was saying, could you ask for Mashiach and truth from the depth of your heart? How do you get there? The answer is really, it's impossible to get to absolute objective truth, except one way. You give tzedakah. Why? Because when you give tzedakah, as long as you almost gave tzedakah, it's about me, my feelings. How I feel. Do I have mercy? Do I have compassion? Do I understand the pain of this hungry man who's starving? The second the money leaves my hand and goes to him, I become an objective partner in this experience. What does it mean? It doesn't matter anymore how I feel. This guy got lunch, like the Alter Rebbe told his chassid, who says, I don't know if I mean tzedakah. I give a lot of tzedakah. I don't know if I mean it. The Alter Rebbe said, after a moment of contemplation, he said, but his stomach is full for real. You might not mean it. You might mean it to feel good about yourself. I sleep better at night when I give charity. But the poor man, he's really not hungry anymore. He really meaning the truth. In other words, I take myself out of the equation, and that's how I achieve truth. As long as I'm involved, I can't get truth because I'm limited to me. But the second I give the charity, I'm no longer part of it. It's my mitzvah, but it's no longer limited by me, and therefore I give it over to him. And the fact that he's helped, that's true. He is truth help, and I'm no longer limiting the result. Let's see this inside. It's a fantastic approach. This mitzvah allows us to tap into God. What does it mean? Hashem says, you just went. What's tzedakah? Tzedakah is not talking about when you do a kindness to a friend. We're talking about someone that you meet that in your mind doesn't deserve it. He actually is the cause of his own problems. And he is a guy that you feel that you're giving him tzedakah, you're not helping him. I mean, you're helping him today, but you're not solving his problems because he's going to come to you again tomorrow. Your deeper approach might be, in my opinion, if I don't help you, you're better off. You'll go get a job. But I'm enabling you. But you know what? All these calculations put aside, right now he's hungry, I'm helping him out. In other words, I'm not doing it because it makes sense to me. I'm not doing it because I care about this guy. I don't even know who he is. He's a guy in the community that drives everybody mashuga. But I know it's a real charity. The guy has nothing to eat, and I'm going to help him out. Because the charity is real, and I don't feel like I have to do it. I'm doing it only because it's a mitzvah from God. And my final giving it over to him, I put myself out of the equation. This becomes the ultimate kindness. And Hashem says, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing to you. You may not earn what I'm going to give you. You see, usually in life, you get what you earn. I earn $10 an hour. I get $20 in 2 hours. But because you showed me that you can give something to someone who didn't earn it, that's how you tap into me to get what you didn't earn. We said before, how can you tap into the part by God you didn't earn? I want to get $1,000 tip. How do I get there? Show Hashem that I give people things they don't earn. I didn't work for this guy. I didn't owe this guy any money. He's not family. He's not a friend. He didn't do any work for me. Why am I giving him money? Because it's a mitzvah of tzedakah. I will now give you my tzedakah. And even though you only earn $20, you're getting 1,000 or 10,000. And that's how you tap into God's higher than rational kindness. Here, let's see it inside. He says, how could you arouse from your own limited truth to arouse Hashem's truth, Hashem's infinite truth? The advice, the answer is, and this is the answer to this chapter, this is how you achieve arousing Hashem's mercy upon you. And the mercy we'll see is not just physical mercy, it's both physical and spiritual mercy, meaning both physically and spiritually Hashem will bestow from above the norm to you, is midas hatzedaka, the act of charity, shehi midas harachamim, which is our midah of rachamim. We awaken our mercy, and instead of just doing mercy on our level, we give the money to someone else. You see, in putting on tefillin, lighting Shabbos candles, at the end of the day, the mitzvah remains subjective to my experience. How much mitzvah is it? As much as I'm talking to the candles in my heart, as much as I'm talking to God in my heart, as much as I'm feeling the tefillin. So it's limited to as much as I can understand it. Yes, it's a mitzvah. But the second you give it over to someone else, I'm no longer in the picture. I'm no longer holding the strings. I'm no longer holding on. I'm letting they say, I'm cutting the umbilical cord. I'm letting the child go free. Stop restraining him. A lot of times a parent has a child and he tells him, don't do that. Let the kid go. Stop trying to hold him and based on your experiences to limit what he's going to do. And this is what Hashem says, give tzedakah. And the second it leaves your hands, you're out of the picture, but you didn't lose your rights to it. It's just no longer limited by you. Almanda Leslie Migarmei, the guy has nothing. And he said, nothing means he has no rights. He has no rights to my money. He has nothing. Because he's a down spirit. He has nothing. He has nothing I'm going to get from him. It's not like I'm going to walk away saying, "Hey, look, I fed this guy. I didn't know the guy. I mean, I know who he is, but I don't have any connection to him." You can't walk away saying that I'm feeling that was all good till you gave the tzedakah. The second it left your hand, you're out of the picture. Until you gave it, yes, you're controlling how much you feel, how inspired you are. But once you left your hand, you took off the limitations. And then with your actions, you make an arousal from below, creates isarusa de la'ela, an arousal from above. Hashem wakes up the sleeping, who makes the dumim, and it wakes up also, in other words, wake up those who are slumbering. Who is that talking about? Hashem doesn't sleep or slumber. It's talking about there's a level of godliness that seems to be in a state of sleep and slumber because you can't see it. That's called above the process. Process starts at Chachma. Hashem has his Chachma, Hashem has his Bina, Hashem has his Das and Chesed, word Ferris, all those processes. How do you get above that? That's called Keser, Arich and Atik. That's the area that's slumbering. We have no connection to above Chachma because that's not part of Hashem. Doesn't function. The world doesn't function with an active relationship with the levels above the regular spheres. That's called sleep. We call it sleep and slumbering because to us we don't see we don't see anything. But in the concept of Chassidus, there's no interaction with the world regularly above Chachma. Keser doesn't have an interaction. That's called sleeping and slumbering. When we go and arouse Hashem's Keser, that's the Arich, the depth, the external part of Keser, and then Atik, which is the internal part of Keser, that wakes up that energy that was never accessible, and now you can get poured down on your life, like literally poured on you, the blessings, the flow, hashpa from the highest sources, not any more limited to my actions, because I tapped into something extraordinary. I gave someone what they don't deserve. Hashem gives me what I can't earn. This waking up refers to the great mercy and the great kindnesses, which are always hidden, and they can't come out usually from its concealed place to be revealed. That's Keser. Keser is not revealed. That's which is beyond flow. It's like the crown on top of the head. It brings and it brings a guiding light into our life and into the world as a result of our actions. Comes out that giving tzedakah is the ultimate tool, the ultimate key for drawing down absolute chesed. Why? Because we're not operating on our limits, we're operating on without my limits. Whenever I do something and I want to understand or feel or relate, I'm operating on a level that I'm limited to. How far can I understand? How much can I know? So I'm saying, I want to use this cup. Give me as much as you can. I'm using this cup. I don't care how much I have. I can only fill up your cup to a certain point. Beyond that point, it doesn't go. As long as I'm trying to limit it to me, I can't get beyond me. But if I take myself out of the equation, it's called the words that Steinsaltz keep using when he does his, I was reading his book a lot last day or two. He uses, as long as it's subjective, you're limited. As soon as it becomes objective, that's what you want. That's the goal. The goal of a mitzvah, is like bittul. What's bittul mean? It's not about me. The only way it's not about me is when I'm not doing it because a person is supposed to get it from me. He doesn't deserve it. And I'm taking it out of my control. Here, you have the money now. I am no longer limiting the results. And now we can understand, going back to the very beginning of the chapter, we said in the very beginning of this section, we said, Zoreya tzedaka secher emes. Planting tzedaka, the reward is emes. He says, why does he use the word Zereya? Zereya is a very unique activity. Unlike everything else in the world, when someone's going to go and make cake, someone's going to make brownies, someone's going to make a challah, how much are you going to get out of this process? As much as the ingredients you put in. If you put in 5 pounds of flour and you put in whatever, I'm not going to guess the recipe, but you put in a limited, however much you put, you're not going to put in, unless you're sorry, Menu, who makes challah and gets from one challah 4,000 challahs, that's different. A regular person, not Sarah, when you make a challah, you make 4, you're getting 4. You make enough for 5, you can maybe stretch to make a 5th challah if you make a little smaller challahs. That's it. When you plant something in the ground, all bets are off. You could take a seed that's a tiny seed, plant it in the ground, and get a giant tree that gives thousands and thousands of fruit. Why? Because you're tapping into an energy beyond the seed. It's called in the ground. The ground is called Malchus. Eretz is Malchus. When you tap into the ground, you're tapping into an energy that's there, and that energy, Malchus, is like the doorway of all this. We have all the spheres, in our body. Malchus is always the last one that feeds into the next world. Or in our body, Malchus is speech that takes our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, and expresses it outside. The ground, when you tap into it, when you plant something zereya, you plant into the ground, and you have to put a seed in. You can't just go into the ground by itself. You have to put a seed in. You will get 1,000 times what you put in. And that's what he says about tzedakah. Tzedakah is zereya. It's the one mitzvah that you'll find it in the number of times throughout zereya. Tzedakah is Yeshuas. You find that expression. Zereya is found by tzedakah, because tzedakah, you put in a nickel, you get back $1 million. Doesn't mean you're getting $1 million. You might, but you're getting 1 million means 1 million times what you gave. Because there's no limit to the planting, unlike a limit to anything else you do. Anything else you're going to make, what you're putting in, you buy material to make a dress, you're only going to have as much as what they say, wisdom in, wisdom out, etc. I said nicely. So the bottom line is, whatever you put in, you're getting back, not by tzedakah, because you're planting it. You get the ultimate truth from Hashem. That's unlimited. Especially when you go into the truth tzedakah. What's the truth tzedakah mean? So we have in general, whenever we use the expression chesed shel emes, that really refers to the chesed that is done to someone who passed away. The people who take care of the bodies in a funeral home, who bury the Iggeres Hakodesh, Zaka, that does a very difficult and painful work in Israel, collecting the dead after, God forbid, a tragic event. They are doing what's called chesed shel emes. What it means, ultimate kindness. Why? Because you're not getting anything back. You can't say, usually if I do a favor, if I give you a ride to the airport today, I could say, you know what, in 2 weeks, I'm going to the airport, could you give me a ride? You know, if I invite you, you probably invite me. Everything we do with people always has a possibility to be reciprocated. That's how it works in life. One hand washes the other. When someone passes away, you don't say, you know what, I'm going to go to your funeral and take care of you, you go to mine. It doesn't work that way. Once you do a chesed shel emes, the person can never do a favor back for you. What happened here, and what was in Eretz Yisrael going on? There was the first Aliyah movement in the world of the modern Aliyahs, last hundreds and hundreds of years, is Chabad. In the late 1700s, the Chabad movement made a massive, it wasn't even called Chabad yet, it was still Hasidus, but it was early stages of Chabad. It was times of the Alter Rebbe that the Chassidim decided they're making Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, to go to Israel. And the Alter Rebbe was going to go too. He went actually to the border of Turkey and Russia, wherever that is on the map, you check it out, and he stopped. He came back. He was told he has to be in Europe and he has to go and fight the good fight to bring Yiddishkeit, Chassidus to the world. But they went, who went? A bunch of poor people, Chassidim. And who they leave behind? A bunch of poor Chassidim, very wealthy. You have these people come to Israel, there's no income. Where are they going? There's no, in the 1700s, the 1800s, there was nothing, there was nothing there to make money. People were starving, people were sending money all the time. So the Alter Rebbe would be one of the people that fundraised. He wrote these letters over and over, gathering money. Who they write letters to? Not the people who had, a couple cars, a couple of homes. It was the people that couldn't put bread on the table. And he said, you know what? There's Chassidim that moved to this faraway country. You're never going to see them in your life, but they're hungry. We got to send them. It's called chesed shel emes. I don't have the logical way to give them. I don't have food. If I send them money, I'm taking away my breakfast tomorrow for my kids. We're going to skip breakfast tomorrow, but I'll send you $5, 5 ruble. But the people getting it don't even know who it's coming from. It's not like they have a list. Okay, this is a Yankel the shoemaker. This is the guy, the cop. It was sent. It came in an envelope or a pack. Usually, a guy schlepped it, brought it himself, gave the money. It's the ultimate chesed, and you're not getting it back. And the Alter Rebbe is telling, this is a letter saying, this is the greatest thing you can do. You want to live, you want to be alive, you want to have a Yiddishkeit that's true. Take your last dollar and send it to Israel. It's amazing. And he says, this truth, you're getting nothing back from this. Not like you went to the shul, you gave the shul $1 million, now after you walk into the shul, it had your name on it, the Goldberg Sanctuary, the Goldberg building. All those things are such a good feeling. I'd love to do it. But because there's a certain joy, and by the way, it doesn't mean it's ego. There's a satisfaction. It feels good to be able to do certain things, especially if you're honoring a parent. You imagine the joy of putting your mother's name, your father's name on something which is meaningful. Here, it's going like almost like into a black hole because it's never solved. There's always hungry people, and we send them money. Iggeres Hakodesh has done with the land of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Tibana v'sikana, that stands for Tibana v'sikana b'mheida b'menu amen. Tibana means to be built, v'sikana to be established. Speeding in our days, as we say, whenever we say Israel, there's a custom to say this expression. You'll see it on many places. L'kayem hashakasav emes me'eretz titzmach. Truth comes from the land. Again, land is also code for Malchus. The truth will come from the land. And through this act of tzedakah, this act of kindness that you plant into the earth, into Eretz Yisrael, you will see the tremendous blessing that come from it. That's not why you're giving it. That's going to be the result. You're giving it because the Alter Rebbe told you this is the thing to do, and you got to do it. You take your last dollar and you put it into last ruble, and you send it to some anonymous Hasidic families living in Hebron. That's where they had the communities of Hebron in the early 1800s. They had the Tzemach Tzedek Shul in Yerushalayim. The Mitzvah Rebbe's daughter was living in Hebron. And it gathers within this mitzvah kindness and absolute mercy. This will further bring down even more kindnesses from above. Hatzfunim, which is hidden. Again, we talk about tzfunim, meaning that which is above chachma. It's not accessible. V'ne'aloim, and it's not seen. That which you have hidden. Chulu. L'keinana ulakima. L'keinana means that you're going to help establish the land of Eretz Yisrael. The land of Israel. I keep saying Eretz Yisrael. The land of Israel. The land of Eretz Yisrael. They're saying ATM machine, because ATM is already machine. The land of Israel. L'keinana, to establish it. L'kima, to make it strong. With hashkasa, but tzedaka to ganeni. With tzedaka will establish it. So basically, what we see here is a tremendous power that we have. And what's that tzedakah? What is that mitzvah? The mitzvah specifically of tzedakah. I just want to take away from here. We have a few minutes. I just want to take two things very important from the chapter. Number one, related to today. Today is Yud Kislev. Yud Kislev is a day the previous Rebbe was released finally from prison. Different opinions how it happened. If it happened that same year he went out of jail, or was it also celebrated the next year? Because the next year they were still, some say different opinions. They were still harassing him. Some people, it was finally the next year was done. Different opinions if it happened in Pei Vav or Pei Hey. This 1825 or 1826, when it actually was the release from prison. Either mean a year before he died or 2 years before he passed away. But the bottom line, what was he arrested for? Because there was a nephew of Rabbi Pinchas Reises. There was a man who had a letter that he had written asking to collect money for Israel. He had written a letter, and he sent it to Pinchas Reises, a big chassid who had passed away. His nephew now had his letter. And in the letter, he asked to raise 4,000 ruble for Israel, which is a very large amount of money. 4,000 ruble. I used to always be told ruble, like it was equivalent to $20 today, let's say. So think about what that is, 4,000 ruble. And this letter was given to a cousin of the Mittler Rebbe, who was a big troublemaker named Lutman. And he said he's going to blackmail, if the Rebbe doesn't give him money, he's going to blackmail him and go to the government. Anyway, he took this letter. He changed it from 4,000 to 104,000. Now we're talking about like almost like $1 million, $2 million. And he says that he's raising money to give it to the Sultan of Turkey, who was that time controlling Israel. And that was a war with Russia. So he's doing acts of treason. So the fundraising letter he made for Israel is what caused this whole thing. And for about 40 days, he was in the prison, different than the Alter Rebbe, much different. He had a lot of freedoms that didn't exist in prison. He was allowed to have a minyan every day in his cell. He was allowed to have visitors stay with him. He was allowed to give Hasidic lectures twice a week. He had a lot of non-limits on his prisonhood. But the bottom line is, it was all a trumped-up charge because he raised money for Israel. And it ended up being found to be innocent, and it was all for Israel, etc. It was not for related to the Sultan. It was just act of tzedakah. So today was celebrating the Mittler Rebbe's release from prison for a fundraising letter from Israel, for money for Israel. So it's very interesting, a special day to finish this chapter. Second point to finish with is, well, a lot of times we learn something, we wonder, what could we take from here? What could we do? So I was thinking a very nice idea is, whoever's in this class, whoever's watching online, whoever's watching this later, take some time today, go online to one of the tzedakahs in Israel and make a donation. As a conclusion of this chapter, it doesn't matter if it's $5 or $10, it doesn't matter the amount. The matter is that we're taking this letter, and it's not just becoming a letter that Alter Rebbe wrote 220 years ago, but it's becoming 300 years ago. Not just a letter that he wrote, a few hundred years ago, but it's becoming a practical instruction today. And in particular, there's one tzedakah which is special to give to today, which is called Keilah Chabad, because that was a tzedakah he established.